It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.
Consequence Podcast Network. And welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK and WFPK.org. Consequence and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you as always for making your way here. For check out the episode, hit that subscribe button if you're not already. That way you can keep up with all the interviews that I put out every single week. It's a new one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover those new ones. You can find us, of course, at Spotify, at Apple Podcasts, NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcast from. You can subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. Don't forget to give the series a rating, leave a review if you feel so inspired. That always helps out so much. We've had some great guests on lately. Ani DeFranco is here. Maya Hawke talking about her new album, Chaos Angel. Caleb Followill, lead singer of Kings of Leon. Japanese actor Tadanobu Asano. He stars in Shogun. Carl Clemens Hopkins. You know Carl as Marcus in Hacks on HBO. Joe Talbot, lead singer of Idols, was here. We talked to the cast of The Big Cigar, playing now on Apple TV+. Comedian Modi. Tom Bailey of Thompson Twins. Joe Gatto of Impractical Jokers. David Miller of Il Divo. Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. Grace Cummings. Just an example of what you can hear when you subscribe to the Kyle Meredith with podcast. And that's me, Kyle Meredith. Today, we're rewinding back to 2018 when Brandi Carlile dropped by to talk about her record, By the Way, I Forgive You. In fact, I say Brandi Carlile dropped by. I think technically speaking, I dropped by Brandi Carlile's place up just outside of Seattle. She has this beautiful loft barn studio that she's built on her property, and it was a magical day. In fact, we did a private listening of the record before it came out in our living room, and then we all jumped on some four-wheelers and rode around in the woods for a little while. And then we did this interview, and that's a hell of a setup to do an interview right there. But just had the best time talking. The great thing about this interview is this is the moment, like, she had been building, and the story had become sort of its own legendary song, and her career just kept building and building and building, and then this record happened, and it was as this record happened and the song, the joke got out there, that you could see, she went from this really well-known singer-songwriter to where she is now in this really, superstar status, hanging around with Elton John and Joni Mitchell and selling out, festivals and on and on and on. And it's still just such a good record. I mean, there's a lot of heavy topics on here. Brandi had just become a parent for the first time. We talk a lot about that, how that affected the lyrics. Of course, being gay parents and having kids. And 2018, that was still a big moment. I mean, it's still a big moment now. It's still in the conversation, but it was especially poignant at this time, and the way she wrote about it so poetically and melodically, and it's still some of my favorite music that she's ever done. So it is with great excitement that we revisit this one, rewinding back to 2018 to talk about the album, By the Way, I Forgive You. It's Kyle Meredith with Brandi Carlile. The compliments are first. It's a beautiful record.
Thank you so much, man.
And I think, with songs, you sort of feel the emotion sometimes before you catch the lyrics. So right from the beginning, like, what an emotionally rich record. And then you hear the lyrics, and I think, oh, it's a heavy record.
Yeah, it is heavy.
And even in the shades of light, it seems like they all sort of come from somewhere dark, too, a lot of the time. Like, how emotional of a record was this for you, making it versus now having to be out there performing it?
It really caught me by surprise. It did when I was making the record, because we were only keeping and only reacting to the really emotional stuff. And so something happened to me when I became a parent, where I had I developed a filter for writing and creating things, not just music, that were conscious in a way of me trying to look or appear cool or with it or hip or any one way. And I developed a much more philosophical ability to express myself. because I lost something around wanting to be seen as hip or smart or interesting or cool or like a rock and roll type person, you know? And I don't know. I feel like my daughter helped me accept myself in ways that were bigger than I had before.
It's amazing what kids will do.
Yeah, right.
For you. I mean,
do you have them?
Yeah, I do. I have one. He's 10-year-old. And that was, like listening to some of these songs, I thought the one thing that there was lots of things that a kid will do to you once you have them, but it especially kind of takes you back to a time that you thought maybe you escaped and everything. Like I see him at school and I think to back when I was at school I got bullied and everything else. And I worry about him and everything. And like when your first single, the joke comes out and you hear that first verse, like I was scrawny, I was effeminate, and like having to deal with that. And I don't know, is that where that comes from? When you like having a daughter now and you're looking and going, oh God,
oh dude,
I was there.
The empathy is profound and it takes you by surprise. Yeah, because you did think that you escaped it. And like really maybe it only existed when it came back to you in your dreams every once in a while, about being in school without your pants on or something like that. But then you're watching them do it and you're watching them go and experience being in a social setting. And you're right back there. The memories come back, and the empathy is there, and you're nervous all the time. I'm worried all the time. It can only be described to me as like this kind of profound realization that everybody is somebody's baby. And it changed everything for the kinds of material I can digest. Like I can't watch violent things anymore. Things that used to be scary, like I'm just like, oh, that's not funny. That stuff's I'm not watching that. No, don't go up those stairs. Everybody becomes somebody's baby. All of your old memories of being in school or the things that you went through as a kid come rushing back to you. And, interestingly enough, I saw both my parents lost their mother this year. And that was really fascinating because seeing them over the years gripe and complain, from time to time about their moms or the things that keep you from answering the phone, all those things were just gone in a minute. They didn't matter anymore. They couldn't remember them. All they could remember were like unearthed funny stories and heroic moments and these amazing maternal things that they were never telling me that their moms used to do those things when I was growing up. And I was like, well, I can realize that stuff about my parents when they're gone and I'm filled with regret and judgment, or I can remember that stuff about them right now while they're still here.
And we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. It's Kyle Meredith with Brandi Carlile. You mentioned a word a minute ago with acceptance, and I feel like the two big words that fall in this album, and I think some of the themes you're talking about right there too, acceptance and forgiveness, but they don't mean exactly the way we use them every day in this sense, right?
Yeah. Acceptance isn't to be confused with complacency, and forgiveness isn't to be confused with a kind of modern, suburban, white, Judeo-Christian use of the term that we use, #blessed style. It's a radical and stunning and difficult process.
What is radical acceptance?
Radical acceptance is the ability to accept and love someone regardless of whether or not they'll meet your requirements.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier said than done. You might be hearing me say that right now. Go, I do that all the time. I do that every day. But I don't think we do. And even I'm talking about it and not doing it as we speak.
And with everything going on, I mean, it seems like there's sort of an avalanche for you because becoming a new parent is one thing. And then on the broader scope, the social humanitarian scope, there's so many movements out there now that are finally getting the conversations that they... And for you to filter all of that into writing, was that a challenge? And was that all a part of it? Or was this really more of just a personal journey for you?
No, I mean, I think that we're kind of like alluding to whether or not politics have made their way or the sort of social climate has made its way into the lyrics. And for me, it absolutely has. Like, I always wanted to be one of those artists. I wanted to be like Dolly, and like not be political. But I'm just not that girl because politics have been really personal for me. In my family, I wouldn't be married if it weren't for my focus on American politics or the fact that shifted in my lifetime. I wouldn't have my child. And so politics and elections and social rhetoric, those kinds of things get real personal for me real fast. And they made their way in the same material that led me to talk about compassion, forgiveness, and family.
With all respect to Dolly, one of my favorite Bob Dylan quotes is, well, all songs are political.
They are. Dylan would know.
Yeah.
Dylan would know.
Yeah.
Joan Baez would know better. But
That's right. And speaking of, this album also comes on the heels of you celebrating that 10th anniversary of Landmark album with the story and everything. You've got Dolly covering you. You've got Pearl Jam covering you. Like, I sort of wondered that when you have to go back and open up the chest again and pull out the old clothes, and then you've got something to write, like how much of that dust residue ends up on these new songs?
it's so funny how much I'm learning that we are who we are from like infancy. Because like when my daughter was born, this infant, this personality, I didn't see it developing because it was my first kid. But now that she's almost 4, it's like she has been that exact person from day one. And the songs that I wrote when I was a teenager that made up the story, and Brandi Carlile, are still haunting me, plaguing me to this day. I'm still doing all those things. I still have all those problems and all those issues and all those habits. And the dust from those songs and those events in my life is all over everything now, because really we don't change. It seems like we just collect realizations.
It's the same personality. You might have different opinions as you grow, but
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah,
sort of
there's
there.
tons of stuff I was wrong about.
But and then though, to have those heroes turn around and do their own interpretations of these private moments of yours. I mean, you've covered songs, your whole career too, but to have that flip back, and that's got to be just one of those wow
You mean
moments.
hearing other people do them?
Right.
Oh man, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I love it to hear men sing particularly my lyrics. I love that gender
Yeah.
shift on those songs. I think it's really cool. But man, there have just been a few times I've heard some people sing some of our songs, and I've got such a kick out of it. And I get a kick out of it at whatever level. I get a kick out of going on YouTube and watching people that cover them, just fans and kids in school, and I get a kick out of those singing shows, people covering them on those singing shows, all that stuff.
Well, it's interesting in that sense then, because the very first song on this new record,
Every time I hear that song.
thinking of Dylan and his song Most of the Time, sort of in that same sense. Like here you are talking about, everything's great till I hear that song and I'm reminded. And of course, the sort of irony is you are the music maker and you're doing that to someone else. You're writing the song that's causing the heartbreak to someone else.
Yep.
That's, yeah.
That irony is not lost on me at all. All I can say is I get it. I really get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back. It's Kyle Meredith with Brandi Carlile. Kind of close with this too, because there's one line on here that I center in on and I love. It might be my favorite line on the record. There will be color and language and nobody wanting to fight. What a glorious sight. Like that's sort of the end game right there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the
Every
dream.
tear. Yeah.
I thought if there's the most hopeful moment on this record, which is again a beautiful record, but if there's really hope, it's all right there. Do you think we're close at all? Because we're in that moment. We're in the weeds.
If we were ever close, it would be right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've awoken in ways that I never imagined I'd see in my lifetime. Things are changing in my lifetime that have just blown me away. And I mean, I've been marching and I've been holding signs and I've been doing, what I think is my part. And I'm seeing people out there doing 10 times more that were asleep before last November. Yeah. And it's really, really heartening and really encouraging. And regardless of what we're reading every day or who's up in Washington, what's happened to us as a country is been really a great awakening. It's been it's exposed so much about us that we can fix and change, and we can't get better as a people until the cracks are shown, and the cracks have been shown, and now it's just time to let the light through.
Well, I appreciate your fighting. I appreciate your poetry.
Thanks, man.
And everything that goes along with it. Thank you.
I kind of like your poetry too. I think you're quite a poet.
And again, my thanks to Brandi Carlile. 2018 interview, By the Way, I Forgive You was the album. She's She's due for new music, I'll say that. But I'm a greedy fan, so I always say that. Thanks to you for checking out the episode. Please do hit that subscribe button while you're hanging around again. That way you get 3 new interviews sent to you every single week. And doing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday makes it a great way to keep up with the favorite artists, discover the new ones at Spotify, Apple Podcast, NPR, WFPK.org, Consequence, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcasts from. You can subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. Don't forget also, if you can, give the series a rating, leave a review. Those always help out so much. After that, you can head over to WFPK.org, where I do a show Monday through Friday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern. I do 4 hours of classics from the 80s and 90s. You get the best in new music, bonus interviews, lots of music news as well. One of my recent shows featured some classics and favorites from David Bowie, Warren Zevon, Bruce Springsteen, Maggie Rose, White Zombie, Nine Inch Nails, Radiohead, 07, Dave Matthews, Pokey LaFarge, Charlie Parker, Dusty Springfield, Veruca Salt, The Blind Boys of Alabama, Oliver Wood, Waxahachie, Hayes Carl, Band of Heathens, Florence and the Machine, Gabriel's, Royal Otis, and my interview with Beth Ditto of Gossip. Just an example of what you can hear every weeknight when you tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on any of the social media sites. The address is always the same. It's at Kyle Meredith. I do hope you like and follow along. And that does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time. Consequence Podcast Network.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org, from Louisville Public Media.